There are a ton of 90s books out there. Which ones are worth finding? We'll take a little peek today on another video on Bronzeville Comics. Hey comic book community, this is Jim from Bronzeville Comics, and I'm going to do something a little bit different with this video. I think I'm going to do this as an ongoing series. We're going to break down comics by year and publisher. And this is to kind of give folks a guideline of maybe what to look for when you're digging through back issue bins at the local comic shop, at a flea market, at a show. And there are a lot of 90s comics out there. They were printed in high quantities. A lot of people collected them. Often when you go to a show or a flea market, I went to a garage sale a couple weeks ago, nothing but 90s. And most of it is absolutely worthless. At $1 a book, you're paying probably fair market value for 90s books. And especially if they're not in high grade. So we're going to take a look at specific years and specific publishers. I'm going to start today with looking at DC books from 1990. Now, this was just before the speculators market took off and then crashed the comic book market later in the 1990s. DC was only 4 years removed, not even 4 years removed, from Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was the entire reset of the DC universe, where they took all of their properties and put them into one Earth, one continuity. And so they were also incorporating characters that they had acquired from Charlton Comics, including Blue Beetle, Captain Atom, and The Question, the latter two of which still had ongoing series in 1990. They were also rebooting some of the properties from Jack Kirby's run. New Gods, Demon were kind of completing runs in 1990, and they were looking at reinvigorating some properties they had, some names that they had. Dr. Fate, Starman, those were other books. So we're going to take a look at the top 10. And really, if the book isn't in this list from 1990, it's probably not worth picking up for more than $1. The fair market value on most of these books is, in that year from DC, is less than $5. Most of them about $2 a piece. So you're not really getting a great value. So let's take a look and break it down and see what's there, and maybe potentially what might have value going forward. DC, of course, their movie and television properties haven't hit the same heights that Marvel has. And it's been about 50 years since DC was ahead of Marvel in terms of market share of the comic book market, and Marvel has really boxed DC out in the movie and now the television market. DC is trying to compete with some HBO Max properties, and we'll mention those here. Some of the best known DC characters aren't on this list, even though they had ongoing series in 1990. Flash, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, not here. So let's take a look. I'm going to start the list at number 10 with a book that's the entire series for most of the year of 1990. It was in the third year of its run, and that's Animal Man. Animal Man was written at the time by Grant Morrison, and I think this is a property that's more of a speculation than anything else for two reasons. Number one, it was a very trippy read. Grant Morrison did a lot of the surrealistic things that he did previously in Doom Patrol, and we've seen how that show on DC Universe and now HBO Max has become a critical success. And I think the possibility of producing Animal Man for HBO Max in a series is intriguing, because a lot of it was breaking down the fourth wall in ways that went just beyond like turning aside and making a joke a la Deadpool style. This was more like breaking the boundaries between creator and creation. And it was really kind of intriguing. The second reason that these books, I think, are very undervalued is because the covers were drawn by Brian Boland. And Brian Boland covers command a premium in certain cases. Some of his Wonder Woman covers. Obviously, there are a lot of collectors who like to collect the good girl art that Wonder Woman shows, but Boland's covers are gorgeous. And in this case, on the Animal Man run, they're surrealistic. So the first issue from 1990 for Animal Man was issue 19, and Grant Morrison left after issue 26. And if you take a look at the Boland covers, you can see the surrealism that is there in each and every cover. These are wonderful covers, and if there ever is a TV show, I think people are really going to discover these covers and want them more than they're wanted now. So Animal Man, the entire Morrison run, the end of his run from issues 19 to 26, which have 1990 cover dates, are at number 10 on the list. They probably have a fair market value of about $2. We don't see them being CGC'd in this period of the run. At number 9, continuing in that same vein, Doom Patrol. Specifically Doom Patrol number 35, which has about a $15 to $20 fair market value and has sold in a CGC 9.8 for $89. I think this is an undervalued comic, especially if you've seen the Doom Patrol series. This issue was the first appearance of Danny the Street, Flex Mentallo, and the Men from Nowhere. So 3 big first appearances that I thought would have popped more based on season 2 of the Doom Patrol series. So that is still written by Morrison at the time. That is number 9 on our list. If we move on to number 8, it's kind of a 3-way tie. And those are 3 issues of Suicide Squad. The one that really is a key, but not the one that's most valued, is number 38. And that's the issue in Suicide Squad in which it's revealed that the Oracle character is Barbara Gordon. Now, Barbara Gordon premiered as Batgirl in Detective Comics number 359 back in 1967. And then when she was paralyzed by the Joker and the Killing Joke, in issue 23 of Suicide Squad, which is a 1989 cover date, the Oracle character premiered. But the identity of the Oracle character was not revealed. It was in issue 38 that was revealed to be Barbara Gordon. That has about a $10 to $15 fair market value. But the 2 issues that are more valuable in the run from 1990 are both Oracle issues. And that's issue number 48, which has about a $10 to $20 fair market value. That's what you can get raw copies for. It's sold as high as $114 in CGC 9.8, and that's a classic Barbara Gordon Joker cover. And then the following issue, number 49, actually goes for a little bit more in Raws. It can sell for over $20, and it's sold for as high as $109 in a CGC 9.8. And that's another classic Barbara Gordon cover, her as Oracle. And that seems to be the one from 1990 that does command the most value. We are seeing a Batgirl HBO Max movie, I think is the way the property is currently being envisioned. At some point, will Barbara Gordon become Oracle? We've seen her as Commissioner Gordon on the Titans TV series, and there was mention of Oracle having existed in that continuity. Personally, I think that would be a very interesting connective tissue for DC. At some point after she's kind of run, had a little bit of a run as Batgirl, and then maybe there's a Killing Joke moment in there. That would be a difficult story to adapt for live action. Obviously, a very mature rating on the animated movie. But then you could have Barbara Gordon transform into Oracle and be part of the storylines involving a number of different heroes in much the same way that Nick Fury has been in the MCU. A different aspect to it. We move up to number 7 on our list, and this is a book that has been increasing in value in the last year or so, and that's Batman number 457, the first appearance of Tim Drake as Robin. Now, Tim Drake did appear previously in the run. This one goes, raw copies about $20 to $30, a high of $132 in a CGC 9.8, and it also has this classic Norman Breyfogle cover with the new Robin, the third Robin in continuity, in shadows, ready to pounce. So those Tim Drake keys a little underappreciated. That's at number 7 on our list. If we move up to number 6, Adventures of Superman 466, which is the second appearance of Hank Henshaw, who later becomes Cyborg Superman. His first appearance was in 465, but this is the bigger book. And this cover and this story in which Hank Henshaw is leading a group, 4 individuals, who get aboard a space shuttle that's hit with some sort of non-cosmic radiation, and they develop powers. Well, things don't go quite as well for them as they did with those fantastic folks over at the other comic book company. But there is definitely an homage there. There's an energy creature who can kind of fly. There's a guy who's made up of like the Earth and the remnants of the shuttle. Henshaw's wife has some sort of phasing powers, and he's like the last one standing at the end of the story. So that book does have some value. It's about a $10 to $20. I'm sorry. About a $10 to $15 raw book, and it has sold for as high as $170 in a CGC 9.8. Now, we have seen Hank Henshaw on the Supergirl TV series and in some of the other Arrowverse properties. David Harewood portrayed him. Actually, David Harewood plays John Jones, who took over the identity of Hank Haywood when he transformed into human form, if that makes sense. So we've kind of seen that character have a little bit of a peak in Supergirl. I don't know if we'll see him again at some point in another DC property. I wouldn't be holding my breath. But at number 4 is Batman 451, which goes for about a $10 raw, high as $193 in a CGC 9.8, and that's simply because of a classic Joker cover. This one, the artist is Norman Breyfogle, who did most of the Batman covers at the time. Everybody loves them Joker covers. Interestingly, it kind of has that parallel. This is 451. 18 or 16 years earlier, 17 years earlier, you had 251, which is that classic Neil Adams Joker cover. But this one does have some value. These are all books. If you see them in a $1 or $2 bin, these are the ones to grab. Leave everything else from 1990 behind, unless it's like a character or storyline that you really want to read and have for your own personal collection. If you're looking for value, these are the ones to look at and forget about everything else. And coming in at number 4 on the list is Hellblazer 27. I believe this is just for the cover. This goes for about a $30 or $40 raw and has sold for as high as $200 in a CGC 9.8. Of course, we've had John Constantine on the big screen, played a number of years ago by Keanu Reeves. Could they bring him back as Keanu in a sequel, or perhaps in the Justice League Dark? Matt Ryan has portrayed him in his own TV series, and most recently in quite a number of episodes over the last couple of seasons of DC's Legends of Tomorrow. John Constantine has a connection to another character we're going to talk about on this list a little bit later on. Number 3 on the list is Captain Atom number 42. It goes raw for about $10 or $20. It's gone as high as $219 as CGC 9.8. This is a little bit of a strange one. Captain Atom was one of those characters, along with Blue Beetle, The Question, Nightshade, Peacemaker, who DC acquired from Charlton Publications. Those original stories came out in the 1960s, and Captain Atom, as well as Blue Beetle and The Question, all started runs in their own DC comics after Crisis. And this was one of the later issues of the Captain Atom book. Interestingly, Watchmen was originally supposed to be written using the Charlton characters. And Captain Atom, they were changed because DC wanted to use the characters in an ongoing manner, and Alan Moore, when he wrote Watchmen, wanted it to be a one-off series and wanted to do whatever he wanted with the characters. So he changed them just slightly, and Captain Atom became Dr. Manhattan. And if you look at the origins of the characters from Charlton, you can clearly see how they were adapted for the Watchmen book. At any rate, Captain Atom, number 42. What makes this particular issue important and coming in at number 3 on the list? It has kind of this Hulk annual homage cover, but what really makes it important is it's the first appearance of Death in the DC universe, in mainstream DC Comics. This is Death as imagined by Neil Gaiman, and there was a little bit of a controversy because Gaiman was allegedly not happy with the portrayal of death. She was used as an aspect of death, and the Black Racer, who was a Jack Kirby created New Gods character, was another aspect of death. And from what I've read, DC came to an agreement with Gaiman after this, and that death could only be used in DC Comics with his permission from there on in. More about that in a couple of minutes. Number 2 on the list is Lobo #1. Now, the main man, as he was known, premiered in Omega Men number 80, or excuse me, Omega Men number 3 that came out in June of 1983. He became such a popular anti-hero that he got his own miniseries. This is his first solo outing, and it's a 4-issue miniseries. If you see any of the 4 issues, just grab them. They're worth, if you get them for $1 or $2, worth grabbing. But specifically issue 1, it's about a $20 run. Has gone as high as $267 in a CGC 9.8. So Lobo, we've already seen on the small screen. Emmett Scanlon portrayed him, and I thought it was a really good portrayal on the Krypton TV series that ran a couple seasons on Sci-Fi. It was kind of canceled in midstream. Lobo has, in the comics, become has always been a popular character and has kind of new life, and with his daughter Crush in their own series ongoing now. So that is number 2 on the list. Now we're going to go to number 1 on the list, and number 1 is kind of be a blanket. Specifically, if we're talking about a specific issue number, I'm going to go to Sandman number 18. And Sandman number 18 has an error variant that they used blue ink instead of yellow ink on, I think it was the first interior page. You can see it here. That has sold for as high as $2,400 in a CGC 9.8. But the entire Sandman series, if you see it, grab it. Take any issue of Sandman that you can find in the dollar bin. If you haven't read it, read it. It's one of the great runs, and it really was a transformative comic. Now, there is a Netflix series. The trailer just dropped about 2 weeks ago. It looks fantastic. I recently listened to the first series of the Audible online. The Audible audiobook that was narrated by Gaiman. It was wonderfully done, and it pretty much adapted the first, I think it was about 24 issues of the series. I believe that season 1 of the Netflix series is going to adapt about issues 1 through 12 of the comic book series. 12 through, I guess, issue 20 were the ones that were cover date 1990. The other one, the one that I am personally interested in, is issue number 20. And that is the death of Urania Blackwell. Urania Blackwell was originally known as Element Girl. She premiered in Metamorpho number 10 back in the Silver Age. And in this story, Gaiman took her because she had transformed. She was unable to die, and she was very depressed, deformed, much like Metamorpho was. He had a much easier time with it, and he still had a girlfriend. So, things weren't that bad for Rex Mason, but for Ms. Blackwell, things did not go well, and she was attempting to enlist death to help her pass on to the other side. So that is an intriguing issue. That's gone for as high as $115 in a CGC 9.8. There aren't a lot of sales of these kind of second season, I'll call them Sandman books in CGC 9.8s, but they do sell. And again, this is of all the books from DC in 1990. These are the ones to pick up. I said it was transformative because it got a different reader into comic books. It got readers from fantasy. There were more female readers of Sandman. And I think there could be something similar when the series premieres. It's been more than 30 years, been 32 years since the comic book came out. Now, it has been in publication and trade paperback since, but for a lot of people who may be intrigued by this series, and Gaiman has a main hand in writing it. And he's going to allegedly stay true to the comics. Now, the first maybe 20 issues, first 10 issues, 12 issues certainly had a lot of connection to the superhero aspect of the DC universe. Then after that, they kind of went on their own stories that didn't have a lot of connective tissue to the DC characters. But we saw the Justice League was involved kind of tangentially. Dr. Destiny has a big role to play, and his role has been cast for season 1. Cain and Abel, who narrated, and I can never get it straight, House of Mystery and House of Secrets, were included in that. The Sandman Jack Kirby run from the 1970s, those characters were included, as were the retro continuity characters of Hank Hall and Lyta Trevor Hall. Were included in that as well. I don't know to what degree we'll see those characters, or if we'll see Eugenia Blackwell, but I have picked up quite a few issues of Metamorpho number 10, just in case, because that's like a $15 book raw. So that's the number 1 on the list. So again, the idea of this list is if you're looking at a flea market and you come across large volume of books from the 1990s, these are ones to look at. The DC books from 1990, that's when, for the most part, the cover price went from $1 to $1.50. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the year is included in the cover. It has both the month and the year listed. So it's kind of easy to find out what you're looking for and what you're not looking for. As I said, if it's not on this list, it's probably not worth picking up unless it's something that you really want. It's not something that right now has value, and there aren't a whole lot of other first appearances. There are very obscure first appearances, characters that haven't really been used since. So I wouldn't recommend, if you're looking for any sort of investment, to pick them up. But these are the books to pick up if you want. And again, if you want to see some of the other content, on this channel, please subscribe, hit like, leave a comment. Let me know which of these books you have, you like, you might be investing in. If there's anything else DC from the year 1990 that you think is worthwhile. And when you do that, you can click like right up here. And this is my big haul video from last week of the collection I bought. And right down here, a little more DC love, 20 intriguing DC Silver Age keys. It doesn't have all of them, but it has a lot that I found worth noting. So until next time, enjoy your comics.